This is a tutorial on APA Style 7th edition for Broward College students. In today's tutorial, we'll be going over the reference list and reference citations. How to use this video. This video is located on YouTube. Scroll down to the description section and select the option for Show More. This will drop down a list of timestamps. Simply click on the timestamp for the section of the video that is most relevant to the question that you might have today. The video is broken up this way to allow you to navigate between the different topics so that you can efficiently utilize the information in the video. Any additional resources or links that are mentioned in the video will also be included in the description section. The two main resources that we will be using for today's tutorial are the official APA Style website and the Broward College Library's APA Style Guide. The official APA Style website contains the majority of information that you will need in order to create references or any follow-up questions that you may have with regards to references. Simply utilize the Style and Grammar Guidelines tab at the top of the page and select the option for References. This will bring you to different subsections. The most used section for students is the Reference Examples section, as well as the Missing Reference Information section. If you select Reference Examples, you will see a list of different types of reference from textual works to online media and examples of how to cite those references. Each reference is further broken down into a different reference type, such as periodicals, books and reference works, as well as, scrolling further down, audiovisual material such as YouTube videos, and further in, online media such as websites, web pages, and social media references. Anytime you select an option here, you will get several different examples that you can utilize. So when in doubt, always consult the APA Style official website. The Broward College APA Style Guide is also available to you. This is a shortened version of the APA Style website information. Most of the information on here are commonly asked questions or frequently encountered issues from students. If you go to the How Do I Cite section in the tabs to the left, you will see that there are several examples for different types of sources that you can cite: articles, websites, books, videos, and so on. Underneath each one of these tabs, you will see several different examples for the different types of websites, different types of books, or even different types of articles that you may encounter, and examples of what these citations would look like. The reference list. The reference list is made up of citations, also known as references. These references provide a reliable way for readers to identify and locate all the works you cited in the text of your paper. Works are considered any source you used for research: articles, websites, books, etc. Citing within your paper, also known as in-text citations, is when you briefly provide enough information to uniquely identify the source of your research within your reference list. Typically, the author's last name and date of publication are used. Let's look at some examples of a reference list. This is the sample APA student paper that is made available to you via Broward College or the APA Style website. A demonstration of how to download this paper was provided in the previous video on setting up your APA student paper. If you scroll through this example, at the very end, after the conclusion, you will see on a new page the references list here. The title References is bolded and centered, and each one of these citations or references on the list are in alphabetical order, and they are all formatted with a hanging indentation. To format the reference list will be reviewed later on in the video, but this is an example of what your reference list may look like once you have collected enough references to add to this list. Reference list guidelines. All references that appear on the list must have a corresponding citation within the text of your paper and vice versa. This means that for every citation that is included in the reference list, there should be a corresponding in-text citation. If you cite a work within the text of your paper, you must create a reference citation for it on the reference list. If you have a work listed on the reference list, you must cite it in the text of your paper. If you have references on the reference list that are not in text or cited in text on your paper, they do not belong on the reference list. If you read a work while doing research for your paper but did not end up citing it in the text of your paper, do not include it in the reference list. To recap, the reference list is strictly for those works that you have cited in the text of your paper. Creating references. Common reference entry elements. These are some guidelines that apply to most references no matter what type of source you're citing. First off, author names are inverted, meaning the surname of the author is listed first, followed by a comma and the author's first and middle initials. I'll use my name as an example. My full name is Tiffany K. Walker. If I were to cite an APA source that I've written, my last name would go first, Walker, comma, T, period, K, period. One exception is group authors. For group authors, such as government organizations, you should spell out the full name of the group or the organization in your reference list entry. The date of publication is always enclosed within a set of parentheses. So to continue the example, this video would probably be cited with the year 2020. So to start off the citation, we would have my last name, comma, first and middle initials, and the year 2020 within a set of parentheses. The title of most works is written in sentence casing, meaning that most words are lowercase. In APA style, you only want to capitalize the first word, words that appear after colons, or any proper nouns. Every other word in the title should be lowercase. In the example here, we have my name, Walker, comma, Tiffany, K, the year 2020, followed by period, and then the title of this work, APA Style 7th Edition, Reference List and Citations. As you'll notice, APA is capitalized in all caps because it is an acronym, therefore making it a proper noun. The word reference appears after a colon, so the R in reference is also capitalized. When citing an entire book, there are 4 main elements that you have to consider: the author's name, the date, the title of the work, and the publisher. In this example, the author's name appears as mentioned earlier, with the last name followed by the first and middle initial. The last name is separated by a comma, and the first and middle initials are separated by periods. The date or the year of publication is set within parentheses followed by a period. The title of the work is italicized because it is the title of a book. And as you can see, the first letter of the title is capitalized, and the word "the" after the colon is also capitalized. At the end of the title, there's a period, and the name of the publisher, Penguin Books, is written the way it shows up in the cover of the book. The end of the citation here ends with a period. Citing a chapter in an edited book. There will be instances in which you will cite a chapter within an edited book. Sometimes that edited book might be your textbook. Let's look at this example. Once again, we have the author's name with the last name first, followed by a comma, and the first and middle initials, separated by periods. You have the date of publication within a set of parentheses, followed by a period. You have the title of the chapter in sentence case, and the name of the editors. At the very end of all the editors' names is the initial EDS to indicate that these are the editors. There's a comma, and then the title of the full work, which is typically the title of the book. The title of the book is featured in italics and in sentence case, meaning only the first letter of the first word. Proper nouns and any words occurring after a colon are capitalized. The edition and page numbers are also featured in a set of parentheses. As you can see, this is the 4th edition, and the chapter is from page 115 to 129. The name of the publisher is the last piece of information, and that is followed by a period to close out the citation. Citing a web page on a website. To start off, you would have the author's name with the last name, comma, first initial. The author did not have a middle initial, so we don't include that. Then you have the date. Most web pages on websites have a full date by comparison to books, which only have a year of publication. So when you have the full date available, use that. In this instance, we have the year followed by a comma, and then the month and day that the web page was published. As usual, the date is inside of a set of parentheses and followed by a period outside of the parentheses. The title of the web page is featured here in italics, followed by a period, and then the name of the website, which is HuffPost. After the name of the website comes the web page URL. This is the URL link that will take us directly to the web page for us to view the article that is on this website. Let's have a look. In this instance, the information that's featured here is the same one that shows up in our citation. You have the name of the author featured right here. You have the title of the web page, as mentioned earlier, which is usually at the top, and the date of publication, which is featured right here underneath the author's information. To find out what the name of a website is, usually you want to look towards the top of the page. Up here, you can see it's featured HuffPost. Other times, the name of the web page or website may be on the left of the page, to the right of the page, or at the bottom somewhere else. You can also use the URL link up here to verify the name of the website. And as you just saw, the link that we used in the citation brought us directly to the web page in question. Web page on news websites versus newspaper articles. For works from news websites that do not have associated daily or weekly newspapers, cite these works as a web page from a website. We just saw an example of how to cite a web page from a website, so please check out that section of this video. News websites such as CNN, MSNBC, BBC News, and NPR are examples of web pages on news websites that we would simply cite as a web page from a website. For online works from established newspapers such as the New York Times or the Washington Post, cite these works as newspaper article references. This means that this work comes from an established newspaper that has a weekly or daily circulation. Here we see an example, newspaper article citation. The first thing we see is the author's name, which is the last name, followed by a comma, and the first initial of the person's name, followed by a period. Within a set of parentheses, we have the date of publication, which is the year, comma, month, and the day. At the end of the parentheses, there is a period because we're closing out that section of the citation. Then you have the title of the news article, and now you have the news publication in italics. The last piece of information is the web page URL. The main difference between this citation and a news article that you find on a web page is that the title of the news article is not in italics for this one. So, if you need to make that comparison, feel free to go back to the previous section of the video that discusses how to cite a web page from a website. Government agency. For a work by a government agency, the agency responsible for the work appears as the author. The parent agency appears in the citation as the publisher. This lessens confusion for the reader. In the example here, the first thing we see is the name of the government agency, which is directly responsible for this source, the National Institute of Mental Health. Then, in a set of parentheses, we have the year and month of publication. The year and month are separated by a comma, and outside of the parentheses, there is a period to close off this element of the citation. Then you have the title of the work, which is featured in italics. After that, you have the parent agency, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, followed by the sub-agency, National Institute of Health. And lastly, we have the URL link for this web page, which will take us directly to the source. The reason why we have two different agencies is because the National Institute of Mental Health is a subsidiary of National Institutes of Health, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services oversees both of these organizations. Organization web page. For a work by a group or organization author, which means they are non-government, use the name of the organization as the author. In this example, we see the name of the organization listed, World Health Organization, the date of publication, which is the year, followed by the month and day, within a set of parentheses, and a period outside of the parentheses. And then you have the title of the web page, which is featured in italics. The last piece of information is the web page URL, which will lead us directly to the source of the information. No author. When a work does not have an author, use the name of the group or organization that is responsible for the work as the author. You can see the previous example for organization web page. When a work does not have an assigned author and there is also no group or organization responsible for the work, such as an anonymous web page, the reference entry begins with the title of the work instead. For example, the title of this web page is What's the Difference Between Sasquatch and Bigfoot? You can see that the title is featured in italics, so it's very similar to citing a web page from a website. Next is the date of publication, featured in a set of parentheses followed by a period, and then you have the name of the website followed by the web page URL. No date. When the work does not have a date of publication, place the initials ND for no date within the parentheses where the date element should be. Also, provide a retrieval date, which is the date you viewed the work. In this example, we have the name of the government agency, U.S. Census Bureau, the date, which is ND because there is no date, and you'll note that N and D are separated by two periods. They are still within a set of parentheses, just like the traditional date, and at the end of the parentheses we have a period outside. Then you have the title of the web page, which is featured in italics, the parent agency, which is the U.S. Department of Commerce, and then at the very end there, we have the retrieval date. This was viewed on January 9th, 2020. So we have written retrieved January 9th, 2020 from, and the URL for the web page is featured after the from. Please pay attention to the punctuation that is featured in your citations because the punctuation is usually an indication that you're moving from one piece of information to the next, such as moving from an author to the date. Journal article references. Journal articles are typically found within the library's academic databases, but there are also journal articles available online. Some journal articles have a DOI number, which is a digital object identification number. When creating a journal article reference, the DOI number is preferred over the URL link from academic databases. If a journal article from an academic database does not have a DOI number, do not include the URL from your web browser. However, if the academic article is located online, meaning outside of an academic database, then you may include the URL link from your website. Let's see some examples. URL from a database versus URL from online. The main difference is whether the journal article is located within an academic database. URL links that are copied from databases are not accessible to everyone. URL links from a website, however, can be accessed by anyone. The main key here is that if the link requires someone to authenticate or log in, then do not use that link within your reference. This is a journal article from a library database. It has a DOI number. For journal articles from an academic database with a DOI number, you will create the reference by formatting the DOI number as a URL link. let's look at the elements here. We have the author's names. There are more than one authors, and as you can see, each name is separated by a comma. So, to break it down, you have the first author, Grady, comma, JS, which are the initials for that person. Then we follow that by a comma, and we feature the next author's last name, comma, first initial, and separate it by another comma. And you can see that it goes on until you get to the fourth or fifth author, which is Jelinek, followed by a comma and that person's first initial. The next thing you'll see is the date, 2019, in a set of parentheses followed by a period, and the title of the article, which is in sentence case. So only the first letter in emotions is capitalized, and the A after the colon is also capitalized. The word United States is capitalized as well because it's a proper noun. The title of the article is closed out by a period and then followed by the name of the periodical, which is the name of the journal. The name of this journal is Psychology of Popular Media Culture, followed by a comma. And please remember that the name of the journal is in italics. Then you have the volume, issue, and page number. This is volume 8, issue number 3, and pages 207 to 217. The volume number 8 is also italicized, while the issue number is not. There are no additional spaces between the volume and issue number. And once again, pay attention to the punctuation that occurs between the different elements. The last thing you'll see is the DOI number. The DOI number is formatted as a URL. As you can see, it has the https:// at the beginning that most URLs have, followed by doi.org, another slash, and then the completed DOI number. Formatting DOI numbers. There are some instances in which you may need to edit or reformat the DOI number. There are times in which a journal will give you the DOI number, but it is not formatted as a URL. In this instance, you simply copy the number directly as it appears in the journal article, and you paste it at the end of the URL here. You can see an example of the format. It's https://doi.org/ and then you would paste the DOI number at the end of the URL there. You want to make sure that you can actually click the link for that DOI and that it will bring you directly to the article. This is a chart to show you the correct way to format DOI numbers by comparison to some incorrect ways that we have seen in the past. As you can see, the very first one is the correct way, in which you have the URL https://doi.org followed by a slash and then the DOI number. Below that, you will see the words DOI spelled out followed by the number. This is incorrect because this is not a direct link that the reader can use to get access to the article. Below that, you also have another incorrect example in which the DOI number includes a D and an X within the URL, and this will make it difficult for people to access that DOI because it does not actually lead directly to the article. It's an incorrect URL. The very last one is a DOI number that you will typically get from a library database. The reason why we cannot use this DOI number is because anyone using that link will be asked to sign in and authenticate themselves. The purpose of DOI numbers is to give everyone access to the article and give them direct access to the article. You want to make sure that your DOI numbers are correctly formatted so that when people or readers click the links, they can go directly to the article without having to sign in. What happens when you have a journal article from a library database that does not have a DOI number? In these instances, you will simply create the reference entry without the URL link. The reason why we do not want to copy the URL link from the library databases is because these links are not accessible to all readers. So you'll notice in this example, there is no URL link or DOI number to give direct access. the reader will have to locate this article within their own library database. Let's look at the example. We have the author's names listed. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 authors, and in this instance, the author's last name comes first, followed by a comma, and then the first initial for each one of the authors. The authors' names are separated by commas as well. You'll notice that the date is in a set of parentheses, followed by a period, and then the title of the article is in sentence case. In this instance, you also have the name of the periodical, which appears in italics after the title of the article, and then you have the volume, issue, and page number, which are typical for most journal articles. You'll notice that in addition to the name of the periodical, the volume number for the article is also in italics, and that there is no space between the volume and the issue number. The last thing you notice on this one is that the page number is the last thing that is featured on this particular example. This indicates to me that this article does not have a DOI number. Journal article that you find online. For journal articles found online, meaning that they're found outside of an academic database, use a DOI number if it's available. If not, this is the one instance that you can use the URL link for the article. URL links for online articles are accessible to all readers. You'll notice in the example below, as usual, we have the author's name, which is the last name followed by the first initial. You have the date of publication in a set of parentheses and a period at the end. The title of the article is in sentence case, so where the first letter of the first word is capitalized, and the word "the" is also capitalized because it appears after a colon. ASL in the title is in all caps and therefore considered a proper noun, meaning it should remain in all caps. Then you have the name of the periodical, which is the name of the journal, in italics, followed by a comma, and then you have the volume, issue, and page numbers, which are usual for most articles. In this instance, we don't have any page numbers, but I left it there as a reminder that you should always check. And then the last thing you see is the Webpage URL. This is a link that anyone can click and get access to this article. What happens when you're missing reference information? Fortunately, the APA-style official website provides solutions for missing reference information. Let's take a look. As you can see here on the page that will be linked in the description area of the YouTube video, you have the missing reference information chart right below here. On each section, they let you know what is missing, and then they provide a solution. They also give you a sample of the reference entry, as well as what the in-text citation should look like for any type of references that are made with these missing information. Let's briefly move on to the reference list format. When you're formatting your reference page, you want to start the references list on a new page after the last paragraph of your paper. The title References should appear centered and in bold at the top of the page. The reference list is also double-spaced like the rest of your APA document. The list of references should be in alphabetical order, meaning the first letter at the beginning of the citation is what you use to judge in what order you should be placed on the list. Lastly, apply a hanging indent to all references. Let's try to format a reference list. This is a sample student paper that we built out in one of the other videos. What I'm going to do is scroll to the very end of this document, and as I mentioned earlier, you want to go to the next line, go to your Insert tab, and select the option for Page Break. This allows you to start on a new page, and therefore anything that is added to the previous page will not disrupt the information on this new page. To start our reference list, we want to make sure that our document is double spaced. So I will right click, select paragraph, and under spacing here, You can verify line spacing, and this says double. Make sure that the spacing before and after is set to 0 and click OK. Now we need to go home and center for the title. I also need to bold this title and simply type in references. I will take off bold and move to the next line, and then I will left align this. As I mentioned earlier, most of the references that you encounter will need to have a hanging indent. Here, I have a list of references that I prepared earlier. Some of these look familiar because these are examples that we used earlier in the video. I'm going to go ahead and copy 2 to 3 of these and place them in our sample references page. As you can see, when I paste them in here, it does not apply the formatting that I want, but we'll take care of that later. We've gone ahead and copied over 3 different citations from our sample references list, and as you can see, there's no way to distinguish one reference from the next. Most people are inclined to simply add an extra space here, but even then, it doesn't make the reference very easy to read. One solution to this, which is required for APA papers, is to apply a hanging indentation on all references. The first thing I'm going to do is remove this additional space that is in between the references title and the actual references. The next thing I will need to do is highlight or select all of the references on the list. Once again, I will right-click, go to Paragraph, and select the option for hanging. Then I will click OK, and as you can see, the second and third lines for all of the citations have shifted over by 1/2 inch. This allows me to distinguish one citation from the next. If I were to copy over one of the other references and paste it in here and see that it is not formatted, a simple solution would be to utilize the clipboard that is featured here, select it, and select the option for Match Destination Formatting. This allows me to apply the hanging indent formatting to anything else that I paste into my references list. The last thing that I need to do is put my references in alphabetical order. As you can see currently, they are not in alphabetical order. I will simply cut and paste. And this would be the final product of building out a references list on our own. Formatting references copied from library databases. There are some instances in which you will copy references from the library database and paste them into your Word document, and they may or may not be correctly formatted. Let's see a demonstration of what that looks like. I'm currently inside of one of the library databases, and as you may know, there are tools over here to the right where I can utilize to click the Cite button. Once I select Cite, it gives me a list of citation options. I can scroll down and select the option for APA, which is the citation here. It's your job to make sure you review the APA citation within the library to ensure that it is properly formatted. In this instance, I would copy this. I would come back to my Word document, add an extra space, and paste it below here to see what it looks like. As you can see, for some reason, when I paste it into my existing Word document, it is not double-spaced and neither does it have a hanging indent. So just as before, I use my clipboard over here to the right, I drop down a list, I select the option for Match Destination Formatting, and it should format my citation or reference with the hanging indentation and double space. 2 things that I noted in here. Number 1, my DOI URL is not live, so I will need to go in here, and sometimes simply clicking at the end of the document and adding a space will activate the URL link for this DOI number. The second thing I noticed is that the title is not in sentence case. Each letter in the title is capitalized. In this instance, I will need to go in and place lowercase letters where needed. I went in and fixed the title. As you can see, the first letter in the first word, implementing, is capitalized. The letter A after the colon remains capitalized, and LMS, which is an acronym for Learning Management System, remains capitalized because it's a proper noun. The last thing I will need to do is shift this citation to its proper list in the alphabetical order. So I will cut this and move it to the top of the page here. And as you can see, the other citations shifted down appropriately. That is all for now with regards to citing sources and formatting your references page. To get additional help, you can utilize the APA Style Guide. You can also make a research appointment with the librarian, or you can use the library's live chat to speak with the librarian in real time. All of the links that were mentioned in this video are located in the description section of the video. Please check it out.